Hi, everyone. I'm here for the AMA, and I'm just actually by myself this morning. Well, I've got other people here in the room with me, but I'm going to be doing the AMA all by my lonesome because we have our rest of our management team members that would normally be on this are traveling right now on planes in different places. So I'll go ahead and take all the questions. So the first question I have is, how does the token work and how is it used practically? First of all, I'm really happy to say I've been using our new app that's been an alpha test now for about a month or so. It's really great. I love it. I'm super excited about it because I personally can't wait to get all of my followers on social media on it as well. It has some unique features that I think are crazy cool. And some of these unique features are that you can have as many followers in your chat groups as you would like. Which is, kind of very unique. Telegram limits it to 250,000. Another feature that I really like about it is that it's always encrypted. There's no setting for not being encrypted. Now, you might not have known this because I didn't personally know this, but on Telegram, you actually have to set your phone with each chat that you create, and only in one-on-one conversations and chats. Can you actually have it be encrypted? So it's not truly end-to-end encrypted on everything, which is a mind blower for me. And this is so that they can monetize and scrape data. So this is definitely a problem. And I think as you look at all the different platforms, they all come with different real challenges, not the least of which is they're not quantum resistant. So ours is. And so that is a big difference as well. I would say another key differentiator is that our system is not based on our servers. So one of the problems that you have with all the other platforms is that because they're based on centralized servers, if the government comes along and says, we'd like to see the message traffic for such and such person. Now, with Telegram, they don't have to worry about that because it's not encrypted, first of all, with larger than one-on-one chats, unless you've actually stipulated that you want it to be encrypted. But for ours, because we're on a nodal network of node validators, it's a very different situation. We don't actually have control over the whole process or traffic flow or even the keys for the encryptions that are used on the different platform, on the different messaging that would basically be going on between parties using the platform. This means that if the government showed up to WhatsApp and said, we want you to open up the message stream flow between person A and person B, then they would be forced under a subpoena to basically deliver that because they control the servers. We would not be because we don't control the servers, and the key sharding is actually all happening through the nodal network. And you can read about this in our new white paper that's coming out, I believe, later this week. And it's very exciting because it means that for the first time, you can actually have an uncensorable kind of platform. Now, that doesn't mean to say that you as a user might not get subpoenaed directly, but that's a different story, right? And so what we've created is a platform that, because of the decentralization, it allows us to be able to host a technology that then you can create your own chat. It's kind of like the difference between Wix and WordPress that I've talked about before. Now you can have your own community, you can have your own chat, and eventually within that community, you'll even be able to have your own tokens and everything. So this is really going to be for social influencers to be able to communicate with each other and their groups as large as they want those groups to be. And we're also going to make sure, and here's another really key feature, that once a name is taken for like your avatar or whatever you want to choose for your handle, then it's taken forever, right? So it cannot be like on Telegram where I have like 10 to 20 different fakes of me at any given time. It drives me literally batty. They take my logo, they take my stuff. And even I would like to set it up so that once you have a profile picture as well, that profile picture cannot be replicated. So you would know that this is the only one once you've recognized that, that profile picture. So the thing that also differentiates this is that the only way to use our products for quantum resistant encryption, as well as to use our products for compression and all of the other services that we're building on here, both the VPN process as well as NFTs, everything is going to be through purchasing our tokens. So, and each of those will have a different price. Right now, the nominal price for a single use encryption is 1 token, but that price could float also. So we'll be looking at a lot of different factors based on sort of the coin economy on this. But where we think most people are going to go is they're going to buy a monthly plan. Now, I'm really happy that we have Elon Musk figuring this out as well. And he's basically trying to lead the charge on this and switch a platform from a free system, entirely free, to something where there's payment. And the reason he wants to do this is because, candidly, what his plan is to have a decentralized messaging encrypted platform, right, that allows for non-censorship, that is based on blockchain. So he hopes to build what we've actually already built, and we're the first to build this. So it is very, very exciting to be like a few years ahead of Elon Musk, and really with the only true viable quantum resistant platform also. And then, compression and VPN and everything else comes on top of that. So I could not be more excited about where this is right now. And now, having used the app and everything back and forth for like real messaging internally, it's pretty cool. I see this as, in some ways, kind of like replacing not only just WhatsApp and Telegram, which has become obviously a big part of my life, but also a big part of many other people's lives. But this is the first platform that's not going to scrape anyone's data. We won't even be able to have access to your data. We won't be able to access your messaging, which is not true for any other systems that are on central servers. And that's a core aspect. And to make that swap over from a centralized server architecture for Twitter over to a decentralized one is at least a 3-year process. So that's why I'm saying it's exciting to be 3 years ahead of where Elon Musk wants to go, because that's a rare place to be. Do you have node talks on Discord or chat rooms for developers building quantum DeFi pools? So we already have access to literally thousands of node validators who want to, some of them are in groups, some of them are individuals who want to either start up a node or have agreed they will start up nodes for us on a timeline that we basically prescribed as well. So, and in addition to that, we've also been in talks, as you've probably heard as well, about our talks with Polkadot, because they want to put it on a parachain. And then that would mean we would have access to all of their nodal network like immediately. So we are good right now from a node perspective. We feel very, very strongly on where we are in that regard. In fact, our CTO manages a very large nodal network already that is another decentralized nodal network, and he has done so for quite some time. And we're very excited about being able to work very quickly to implement all the node validation. But everybody, and you'll be able to see this also in the new app, some of the newer versions of the app will also include a whole node validator section within it, so you can actually figure out how to become a node validator and how to be able to start getting funds associated with that. Will we see, okay, then also developers for building quantum DeFi pools? Yes, let me just answer that part of the question. So we have probably 70 or so companies right now that would like to build on top of our blockchain. And one of the things that we are very excited about is being a layer one for all of those different companies. We've diverted all of our resources to having a successful launch, to take on a Telegram and to take on WhatsApp, which right now, a lot of people don't believe in WhatsApp because of its ownership structure. No one is decentralized. We'd like to be the first in the decentralized messaging space. And like I said, we're basically pushing really, really fast towards that. And we have a product that is now out. We will be flipping into beta later this week, which is great. So it's basically right when I said the last call we had, I said it was going to be November 20th, and it is going to be on November 20th. So many of you are going to end up getting emails and invitations to be part of the beta process probably the following week. I would say we're going to start taking in the people that we want to be on the beta. So all of the companies that I have in our platform at Strathspey, the parent company that I founded also, are going to be implementing this as well in beta. And so we want to do kind of like a controlled beta release and then go into a larger subset of the population, which would be, all of you in particular, and others that you might know and want to participate in this. But yes, there's a lot of people, and we believe that having the only quantum resistant DeFi platform that really truly is quantum resistant, because NIST just recommended 3 protocols, 2 of which already cracked in less than one. One of them cracked in a day, the other one cracked in 53 hours on standard computers. This is the problem you run up against when you're trying to find a new encryption standard that the government can still crack, but that you can claim is quantum resistant. So that's kind of an impossible task, to be honest, but I think that's what's happened here. Will we see protocols using CSOV to prioritize the new standards for cybersecurity? And if so, how will they interact with each other? I think that there's going to be protocols using our approach. We have a very interesting approach to one-time pad that is, one of them is not integrating any other encryption methodology other than one-time pad. We have something called a vector-based one-time pad that we've also filed patents on, which is very interesting and exciting. It allows us to create dimensional aspects of greater complexity as time goes on, and as technology looks like it could be bumping up against greater and greater speeds to be able to address some of these more difficult encryption technologies like one-time pad, which in theory is impossible if you only use the key once. We see also that we can add vectors of complexity, like think of it as an X, Y axis, and then a Z axis, and then an alpha axis, and you just kind of go and keep adding more as time goes on. So it makes it an easily upgradable and automatically upgradable encryption path, which is also another reason why we're so enthusiastic about this. But in addition to that, we've also now started innovating new encryption modalities that can integrate one-time pads with standard encryption methods as well, like AES. So it basically would be a one-time AES, and that's another thing that I think is very exciting. But I won't go into much detail on that right now. But I'll just say that I think that it's possible to create, one-time pads out of these types of technologies that exist and different forms of hashing that could also still achieve uniform distribution and the randomness numbers required, which is another exciting aspect of this. We have one of the world's top cryptographers coming to visit us next week, and we're under a non-disclosure, so I won't say the person's name, but he's been working very closely with us on some of these new approaches, and I'm very excited about that because I think that this is going to be a thing that helps us to go absolutely mainstream very, very quickly, and the scalability of such a platform could be fantastic. But having said that, we're using our one-time pad right now. It's working fabulously. And we believe that it's a scalable platform as it currently is, but we also know that we want to be able to address a very large part of the market very quickly, and that's all going to be part and parcel of the execution oriented around our successful launch of our I'd say it's going to flip from beta to real-time usage and for revenue in the last month of the first quarter, so March. Okay, please address FTX elephant in the room and describe how you think it will affect Crown Sterling, CSOV. Okay, so there's some really big differences between Crown Sterling and FTX, right? First of all, FTX is a centralized exchange, and that centralized exchange was a custodial wallet. Our wallet and our app is non-custodial. It's decentralized. So that's the biggest difference right there that you can just name right off the bat. I think all the centralized exchanges now are going to be really damaged and hurting because people are all afraid that a centralized exchange can just run off with your money. And it's true. They can. That's why you need to be decentralized. It needs to be decentralized. If it's not decentralized, it's not real. And so I think what happened with FTX is, and it's a sad story on many levels. And of course, we're seeing the underbelly and the bad side of it as well now too, all over the media related to, as he's lovingly referred to as SBF. And I believe that, that's going to cause continuing shockwaves across the crypto industry, but it doesn't really impact our approach because we are neither a centralized exchange, nor are we, subject to any of the same issues that he was basically dealing with. I mean, he was way over leveraged. We have right now presently, zero leverage. He was way in a situation where, he got in a battle with CZ and CZ took him to school. And, that's a little different situation than what we're dealing with here. I've been in business for 30 years. I've been a CEO for most of those 30 years. I kind of know how to deal with people like that might have, ill intent. And especially during negotiations when things can get tough, I've proven many, many times over that I don't lose on these types of battles. I just don't. And I've had many, not because I've started them. My whole philosophy is I don't start fights, but I end them. And that's been sort of the approach and the way we've gone. And it's been very successful for us across many different businesses. And I really believe that what you're dealing with FTX is probably, I wish I could say it was an anomaly. I think the crypto industry is going to be full of these types of stories, quite candidly. You've got a bunch of young people who've never run companies before. And I'm not saying that Sam Bankman-Fried had ill intention, at the base of the company from the very beginning. Very likely he did not. But having said that, what transpired over the course of the last few days, and of course the jury's still out on it, doesn't look very good, especially that, the accounts were basically raided to basically serve him and the management structure. That just doesn't make any sense to me. But, it is a very, very different deal. We've been in business here. You got to look at it too, that FTX wasn't only founded in 2019. I mean, talk about coming out of nowhere and exploding. And usually whenever you see something that comes that quickly, or someone especially that doesn't have a track record yet, that comes that quickly, then, that's where the old saying comes from. What goes up comes down very quickly. So we've tried to take a very different approach. I've been here in this building, working in this office with all of our companies for 10 years. And, I've never had any situations yet that I kind of have to point to and say, oh yeah, that was a thing that we royally screwed up on. Markets have changed. We've had discontinuing of operations from here and there for certain businesses, but we never had any that had to go bankrupt or anything like that. And I have 17 companies under, my management responsibility. And so, life and, markets change and situations change. But I'll say this, that I am very, very enthusiastic about the crypto market long term. I think the crypto market is going to be a massive sea change to how everything is done. I think what people don't recognize is that crypto is uniquely better on many levels, not only because of decentralization and what it means for us related to kind of management of a non-censored, uncensored platform, but what it also means from the standpoint of being able to have your money. I mean, like right now, I have a lot of money in publicly traded stocks. I can't use those publicly traded stocks to purchase dinner on Friday night. It's not possible because there's no mechanism for me to be able to liquidate on a real-time basis, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that stock to be able to pay for assets, even though there might be enough volume in the market and there's a lot of regulation. So I think NASDAQ and other groups are going to have to change, because instead of me having to take a bunch of money in my stock portfolio and then sell a bunch of it in blocks, which also has a negative and deleterious impact on the stock, to be able to get access to liquidity, right? I don't have to do that with crypto. And I'm pleased to say that we did just receive, finally, okay, for those of you in Europe, we did just receive our approval from the banks to be able to put in place our debit card that will be able to be used with our token. So that's super exciting. And we know that the US is not going to be that far behind. And so this means that you can literally use your tokens to buy things anywhere, right? And basically it does a spot exchange on the spot. And for volumes that are small, like dinner and everything, it makes a lot of sense. We want that kind of volume. It becomes a problem when someone feels like they have to sell in a block so they have access to liquidity. When you already have access to liquidity, you don't need to sell. You can basically hold until you decide to use it for purchases of the things you need in your day-to-day life. So this has taken longer than we'd anticipated, but I'm really happy and pleased and very, very, I guess, I'm feeling really good about the position that we're going to have in Europe now, because people will be able to use these cards. And we've already started ordering the cards. I looked at the cards. They look really cool. They're like a black card, and you'll be able to use it pretty much anywhere. And you'll get more details on that very, very soon. We'll be making more announcements on it. So I think the major key differentiators for us is, from FTX is we are decentralized. Our entire architecture is decentralized. We are proprietary. We actually have real technology at our basis, which is quantum resistance that others don't have, that's patented as well. And that we had no exposure to FTX, thankfully. I will say this, that when things got a little crazy, I sent a text to our treasurer and said, please make sure we get rid of any of our exposure that we have in any centralized exchanges. And we did. So we have no exposure to centralized exchanges. And that was just sort of like a risk mitigation for us. Right now, we can always come back into it and manage it very, very tightly so that we will always minimize any exposure we have to central exchanges. But we have very, very little now, if nothing. Okay. When will CSOV be available on more new exchanges? I think right now we're sort of taking a pause on the new exchanges because really the reason for, and we've had many, I mean, every major exchange has asked us to be on their exchange now and asked us to make applications for the exchanges. And some of them we went ahead and did. Some of them we have not proceeded with because we wanted to wait until our product gets out and it's in the marketplace. Now, I'll say this, that there are certain exchanges that we would be open to, but we're also watching very closely the liquidity levels of those exchanges, because I think exchanges that are centralized are generally not a place that you really want to be. Where you want to be is on decentralized exchanges, right? So these would be the DEX exchanges, Uniswap, PokerSwap, all these type of swap platforms are the place that we would like to be. And as a function of our app as well, in one of the future iterations of it, it will have the swap feature embedded within it. So you can exchange between, CSOV and Bitcoin and then Tether and whatever. You can exchange across the board in this decentralized exchange. So we're a doorway to that exchange. And we charge a very minimal fee that of course also has to be paid in CSOV, right? So it's sort of like a gas fee, transaction fee that people would be able to access a decentralized platform through our system also, which is already built in, but not yet activated. Okay. When does the bear market impact the speed of CSOV developments and the launch of new CSOV products? Well, we've been hiring quite a lot. In fact, our dev team has expanded quite a lot. I'm really happy with the quality of people that have joined our team. They're excellent. And I think Greg's done a fantastic job of bringing on outstanding talent. They move very quickly. And I feel really good about that as well. So we have seen no impact yet from the bear market, except that we decided not to sell tokens at this low price, right? We've been holding back and not really going out to token purchasers at this environment because we think it's way, way, way undervalued. In fact, we would be buying tokens right now, not selling tokens. So instead, what we decided to do was our board decided that we would go and do, because we've got this imminent commercial launch and we need capital to be able to, put into that commercialization to make it successful. I launched Botox. My marketing spend a year was over, just in advertising, was $150 million. So we're not dealing with those kinds of budgets, but what we are dealing with is having enough capital to be able to effectively launch the product. And we have determined that in order to do that, along with our current reserves, in the spring of next year, when it goes fully commercial, flipping from beta to commercial, is that we are raising right now a convertible note, which is not a sale of either equity or tokens, a convertible note of $10 million. And the convertible note of $10 million is quite attractive to the company. It's quite attractive to people who participated in it as well. And we've already, commenced that process, and we're already pretty deep into, that whole process to be able to successfully complete that effort. I feel like it's going to be it's quite large minimum. So the people that are participating in it has a $250,000 minimum. And we're going to people that we know and people that are tangential to us as well, but who are very wealthy kind of family offices, et cetera, and who are interested in preserving this notion of, a encryption platform that we believe is fundamental to democracy. we believe that having encrypted messaging and the right to assemble is something that's fundamental as well to a successfully functioning democratic forum. And we think there's a lot of people who agree with us on that. Now, that said, we are putting into the platform so that there won't be things like child pornography, et cetera, in it. It won't even allow you to post a picture that, you know, the AI within it determines that it has something that's inappropriate, like child pornography. I think that's the sole exception. There's no monitoring. There'll be no monitoring by us. There'll be no monitoring by anybody. But it will allow you, and you as the owner of your own chat groups and your own page, it will allow you to be the administrator to run and determine what's appropriate for your community or not, right? That's really a function of your decision. It's not ours to say. You know, I believe that banks need money, or money need banks in order to be able to be secured, for that money to be secured. In the old days, everything was gold. So if I had gold inside my castle and someone tried to steal it from my castle, what would I do? Well, I would probably not worry too much about it, because whoever was going to steal it wouldn't get very far, because they can only carry by themselves enough, you know, that's probably equaling their own weight. And that they won't get very far out down the road before I can catch up to them. But then when banks went to fractional lending and everything, and money was really just a debit and credit ledger on some computer somewhere, then basically you need banks to be able to secure that with strong infrastructure. And that's been the paradigm we've been under. And property and assets need walls and fences around that property. Otherwise, how do you protect it? If you don't have a fence or a wall, if you don't have a door in front of it, then, you know, it could be later claimed as community property. So you need to have those things in place. And otherwise you'll get squatters on your property. It happens all the time. And then the third aspect, I think, where we're going is that data is now the world's most valuable asset. So if the world's most valuable asset is data, then the protection and security of that data and its storage is vitally important. And so that becomes encryption. Encryption, and the very best encryption, I felt this thesis from the very beginning, is right there. And I think the world has converged in our favor across all of these things. We first started talking about data sovereignty and giving the power back to individuals and having secure messaging and everything. This was back in 2018. People looked at me like I was from Mars. They thought I was nuts. And even the people in the InfoSec community, they're like, there's no market for this. Why would anyone do this? Why would anyone be willing to pay for social media? Even then, I understood. I was like, well, because if you're not paying for it, if you're not paying for a VPN, if you're not paying to secure it, then you're the product, and that value is more valuable than any subscription price would be, by far, by many multiples. You know, that data is so valuable right now. I gave the story recently at LA Blockchain about how I was given access to an app where I was able to look myself on the app, and I found 56 pages of data just on me. And this means that everybody in the country has this data accumulated on them, and all of it's being accumulated from your messaging and your social media apps. That's basically what it is, largely from WhatsApp. WhatsApp has $10 billion in revenue almost this year, $10 billion. And yet they have no advertising. They have no advertising, and there's no subscription model. How does that work exactly? Because they're scraping our data and they're selling the data, duh. So the world is now going to have to start waking up, and I think Elon Musk has woken up to it. He doesn't want to be part of that predatory capitalism approach. And so therefore, he's saying we need a decentralized system, and there needs to be a fee. There needs to be a new business model. And he is 100% right about that. He's just 3 years after us. So let's see. So the bear market doesn't affect us at all. It doesn't affect our ability to raise capital. It doesn't affect our ability that we see right now anyway. Obviously it makes the conversations in the beginning on the surface of it, when things were super hot, when everyone would say, oh, there's a new crypto project, everyone's excited and they want to play. But those weren't the people that we would be investing with anyway. The people that we get as investors are people that are generally contrarians. They're very rich. Many of them are billionaires. And these people are not afraid of these kind of machinations, because they know that this is the moment, whenever these bear markets happen, you have 2/3 of people get hurt. 1/3 of people end up catapulting to higher success. And the people that are able to adapt and play the contrarian and jump in and buying opportunities like right now, those are the people that do really well, period. I've seen it my whole career. I've lived long enough now that I've seen cycles. And one of the problems I think that we have on Wall Street is everyone on Wall Street is about the age of SPF. They've not seen cycles. So they believe that since their career began, it might only be 2 or 3 years, a trajectory is always a linear line. And so this is what happens with Wall Street. They all get stuck into believing that something that's looked like this and then gone to this must only ever go here. It's funny, one of my companies is called Alpheon Credit, and we're a majority holder there. And they're 9 years old, and now we're the second largest healthcare lender in the United States for consumer lending. And we've got, hundreds of thousands of people that are carrying around our cards in their pocket every day. And as I look at that business, you look at its graph, it's literally like this for 9 years. It's like straight. And so anyone would look at that and project it out X number of years, and it's going to have this growth trajectory, which is about 40% per year. And it's going to continue on that growth trajectory, and be in the multiple billions and billions of dollars of, lending volume, loan volume. And that's fabulous, right? And of course, we're looking at making offers from Crown Sterling potentially to those types of assets in our umbrella for them to be able to utilize Crown Sterling as well, which I think is another area that's exciting. And we'll come to that process as we get closer and closer with all of our products being in the market. And as we can then offer a full offering, sure, I think every one of the people that have cards or should be thinking about credit, should be thinking right now about participation in crypto, because we're going to see the dollar continue to act like it's been acting, right? We're going to see that despite interest rates going up. And I think you're going to ultimately have a dislocation. And that dislocation, I've been saying for quite some time, is going to happen. And I believe it will happen, in the not too distant future. So be wary about where you put your money right now. It's funny. Right now, New York City, real estate in New York is kind of like at probably a 10-year low or something, if you're wanting to buy an apartment. But paradoxically, rent in New York is crazy high right now, crazy high. And that's kind of like this weird dynamic that's happening. And why are houses coming down if rent's going up so much, right? That doesn't really make sense. That's out of equilibrium. And because it is out of equilibrium, because you've got interest rates that are becoming so high, and the market for purchasing, particularly in New York City, because of the post-COVID era definitely hurt New York for sure, from a real estate perspective. But there's still people that want apartments and need apartments. So you got people and interest rates going up so much, as well as overall inflation going up so much. And we're in a hugely inflationary environment right now. And let's be real, when you print 30%, 33% of all the money supply of dollars in the world in the last 2 years, then we should have inflation that's commensurate with that 33%. We're far from that right now. So I expect that this is going to get probably worse. It'll get worse before it gets better from the standpoint of inflation and the value of purchase power parity on the dollar with what you could buy before. Not purchase power parity versus vis-a-vis other world currencies, because they all did the same inflation actions. They all did the same thing. So they're all suffering from this right now. Some did it slightly more than others. But when I say purchase power parity, I'm talking about a time function of purchase power parity. The dollar today could not buy what a dollar bought 3 years ago, period, right? And that's exactly how we define inflation. Okay, when and how is the one-to-one ratio between CSOV and WCSOV intended to be fixed? Well, I said with the new app, right? The new app is coming out, and that feature is part of it. So it will definitely be a swap feature that you'll be able to make swaps into it. And what we want to do is get our app out first and basically get the messaging aspect of it right. We don't want to have people trying to do all of these things at once. So the very first versions of the beta will be very simple, and it's going to be oriented around the messaging. So we have a deliberate plan around this. We already have the swap feature built in to our overall architecture, of which we're releasing part of. So we're just trying to do this in a stepwise fashion, so people will be able to utilize our app, get a good experience with it, see how the tokens work and everything on it. And the first iterations of it also in beta will be entirely free. So it'll just for the very, very beginning will be entirely free. And you'll see these things be added with time. And the swap feature is going to be one of those things that will be added with time as we see and feel really good, about, it's like think big, but act small and move quickly. Think big, act small, move quickly, right? And the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step, and eating an elephant requires starting with one bite, right? We don't want to try to do too much all at once. And that's really the thing that I'm most cautious regarding, because the thing that matters in this industry the most is true execution. It's actually delivering something. We actually have something now. This is not vaporware. This is real, right? It's real, it's solid, it's here, it's tangible. I can play with it. It's on my phone right now. And it's pretty fucking cool, sorry. But I feel like I don't want to get ahead of ourselves by introducing too many things all at once. And I don't care, frankly, what pressures come from the outside, whether they be exogenous factors or external market factors, or any kind of pressure from here or there. I just want to make sure we do it right. I'm trying to manage the whole situation to benefit everybody as much as possible. And that ultimately benefits you. Okay, this is awesome. Okay, mathematician who solved prime number riddle claims new breakthrough. I think this must be referring to the latest thing on the twin prime conjecture. You're not supposed to talk about Riemann like Fight Club. If anyone can address this, it's Archie. Okay, that's pretty funny. Like Fight Club. I'm trying to still grok the meaning of that one. It's like, you never talk about Fight Club, right? That's the whole thing. It's been a long time since I've seen the movie. I watched part of it again recently, but I do remember that part. Okay, so yes. Riemann, I'll just say this. The most important aspect, yes, all prime numbers are patterned. It's a gigantic pattern. There's no doubt about it. None whatsoever. I can tell you some aspects of it right now. I already talked about it on the weekend on the Gaia event that we had. And what I said was that the distribution of prime numbers is not, in fact, only the Euler number, because it's an asymptote. So it starts out at a different number, right? It starts out at a different number, and it ends at the asymptote. So as the asymptote starts out up like this, and if it was on a graph, it goes down like this. And as you get all the way out to this infinite end of this slope over here, and of course there's a parabola shape, it's going to be the Euler number. So the further out in the number field you go, the closer it gets to Euler, closer and closer and closer. But my question was, okay, what's the shape of the spirality of the distribution of prime numbers? And this, of course, is an important question relative to the current encryption modalities. Yes. So what I determined was that the very beginning of the prime number distribution is not the Euler number, because it must start off with a higher number, because all asymptotes will start off with a higher number. So I want to identify what exactly is that number. And I found what that number is. And that number happens to be the square root of 10. So the square root of 10. So it speaks fundamentally to the base 10 numbering system as being a critical aspect of our numbering system. It's not a arbitrary, we have 10 figures there, therefore we use base 10. Okay. When the square root of 10 is the beginning of the prime number distribution, and then it resolves down to the Euler number, then you've got something kind of really interesting there related to base 10. But that square root of 10, if I take the reciprocal value of the square root of 10, we've also found, we're writing a paper on this, that is actually the square root of -1 also. Because like the number 1, it's the only number that can square its reciprocal, because the number string is identical, right? Minus the decimal position, it's identical. So if you take your calculator and do square root of 10 and then 1 over the square root of 10, it gives you 0.316227766, which is the same as the square root of 10, which is 316227766, and it's infinitely identical. So now what we're saying then is that really the reciprocal of the square root of -1 is actually the beginning of the distribution of prime numbers that create all other numbers. So the imaginary plane converts into the real plane of numbers. There's something inherently beautiful about that. And then the spirality of prime numbers follows and tracks a mod 24 and mod 12 spiral. So the mod 12 spiral is telling us exactly the exponents necessary. It's all based on exponentiation. So the length of the radii as the spiral goes out of the number field is directly correlated. It's a causal relationship, in fact, to the exponential nature of this mod 24 spiral, as well as a mod 12. So the two work together, right, to generate all numbers. So whenever the exponentiation lands on a whole number, then a prime number pops out. We know this already. And why does it always land on the half line? Because it's related to equilateral triangle. And the equilateral triangle cut in half creates this right triangle that creates the logarithmicity of a mod 12 spiral. And mod 24 is obviously related because you have two mod 12 spirals that basically interact with each other, making it 24. And that is very exciting, because what we found is that does relate to the Euler number. It's just converting the Euler number into exponential values for the length of the radius that is going to be denominated in base 12 numbering, right? So like the first hypotenuse over height is actually equal to, that relationship is actually equal to effectively Euler to the power of 0.144, 12 times 12. And then the next modular position goes to 288. And then it goes up to, it goes 144, then 216, and then 288, and then it goes up to Euler to the power of 0.432 is the same as the exponential or logarithmic relationship of hypotenuse over the height of a right triangle that is half of an equilateral triangle, that then basically takes it up to the third modular position. And until then, it's equal. That's why I believe that the number 1 is prime. It actually shows that the number 1 is prime when you use 3.162277766 as your base log value. Then effectively the number of primes in the first 10 integers should be 5, not 4. And this accurately predicts the exact number of prime numbers all the way out correctly, whereas the Euler number does not. For example, the Euler number would say that the number of prime numbers in the first 1,000 integers is 106, is actually 144. So Euler, if you use the base logarithmic base value of Euler, the number of prime numbers in the first 1,000 integers determined should be 144.7. Well, it's not. The correct number is 168. And the reason there's a differential there is because we have this exact problem I just talked about. It starts at the beginning of the asymptote. So when you use 3.16 to find the number of prime numbers that should exist in the first 1,000 integers, it comes out to 167. You add back 1 and you're at 168. It's exactly the right numbers. And it will match the exact right numbers all the way out. It'll be closer, much, much closer accuracy to the actual number of prime distribution than the Euler number will be all the way up until 10 to the, I want to say 10 to the, 9th power. And then once you get beyond 10 to the 9th power, then it starts to get closer towards, it crosses over that midpoint, right at about that level. The midpoint between the mean of the Euler number and square root of 10. So yes, we believe that we've solved it, and geometrically we understand the reason why the non-trivial, the zeros end up on this 0.5 line is because half of a right triangle side, right, will be half of the other sides. And that's why it's landing on the half point line. So we've been busy, and I've not been focused only on this, because I've been focused also on the compression effort and everything, which we've made incredible progress on. And I'm very excited to say that we're feeling really, really good about that as well. So, but all of these things, we don't have unlimited resources to write papers and such. And so I had to figure out what's the most important thing, what's the highest and best use of our resources, people, and time. And we've deployed that exactly accordingly. Okay. When will the company require more financing? I just mentioned that we're basically going to do a $10 million convertible note raise right now. which is quite exciting. We don't have any other debt or anything, so it's a perfect place to do it. When will the compression be launched? Compression will be launched at the end as a commercialized product at the end of next year. We have so many products coming out. Even if we were ready to launch it sooner, I wouldn't want to come out with it because there's only so much that the market can take when you're coming with new products all the time. You have to be able to kind of like cycle them in, and when the world is ready for it, right? If Steve Jobs tried to launch iPhone at the very beginning with all of its different functionality, it would have never worked, even though he contemplated it. If you looked at it back then and see what we have right now, we'd be like, no way. People have to learn all this. It's too difficult. So he started off with iPod instead. And iPod gave a doorway and trained people how to use it, how to think about it. And as they were ready to integrate more, they would integrate more. So, you know, this is how we're looking at it also. We want to make sure we do things in a stepwise fashion. I'm a Taurus. What can I say? I have to bring ideas to the material field. It can't just be good enough that I have an idea, right? It has to actually be turned into something of use and benefit for me to feel happy about it. Okay. Okay. We were wondering how the timeline is coming for Orion's beta release. Right on time. Excited about this. So I'm really happy about it. And I gave an update on the debit card already as well. And please define the relationship between Crown Sterling and Theon. Okay. So Crown Sterling is owned, Theon is majority owned by Crown Sterling. We have a license arrangement because we realize that there's two markets here. One market is for companies that already have implemented kind of cryptocurrency and blockchain and such. But the rest of the market also needs to have access to encryption that's going to be integrated on premises for them, right? So they need to be able to have a non-blockchain, a non-cryptocurrency oriented product that they can access both for, you know, our encryption. We have not done yet the license with Theon related to compression, but, you know, we will likely do that because there's, you know, a need for it and we want to make sure people have access to it. And so we have a cross license arrangement, and also that our teams in engineering work together, right? They're working together. So the implementation of our one-time pad was largely performed by the Theon team, right? They're excellent software engineers. They did a fantastic job of it, and follow all the protocols and sort of like safeguarding and verification validation mechanisms that sort of good housekeeping would require around software. And that also allowed us to expand our team quickly, right? So effectively the total number of programmers we have on both sides of our businesses, probably, and if you look at programmers and mathematician types, we're probably in the 35 to 40 people range. And that's definitely outsized for a company of our stage. So that's a big advantage. And it's really nice to have, you know, maturity across the ranks to do that. So that's fabulous. But Theon will focus on going after the market that's non-blockchain. And that's their limitation of their license, right? That they'll go after the market. They're not going to deliver blockchains. What we do is we deliver blockchains. We deliver a blockchain orientation for quantum resistance. And this benefits us because we need the large corporations also to be able to implement these types of encryption modalities in order for us to get traction also on the side of blockchain. And in the blockchain world, the only way this will get implemented is going to be when people are purchasing, our encryptions and purchasing our, purchasing our tokens. And that's how it's going to always be. And so there's a huge amount. And I'll say this, that I believe that every single crypto company needs to be implementing our encryption. I think everyone on our team would feel that and say that as well. And certainly they will all want to and need to also be implementing our compression. So we want to be set up so that everybody can do that quickly. We also want to be set up so that companies, because making a switch over from one encryption modality to another on a blockchain is really a bitch. It's not easy. I can tell you right now. And here's some of the problems. If you implemented on the go forward basis, a new encryption method on everything going forward, then you wouldn't have all the older part of your chain be protected by that same encryption. So what's going to happen is a lot of companies are going to have to literally cut over and do entirely new merges, right, onto quantum resistant blockchains that already have quantum resistant encryption embedded within them at their state transition function layer. That's what's going to happen. It's just not easy for us to be able to affect that and have it be long-term successful, where there's sort of a wrap feature that could be done on everything. It's going to work every single time easily. It's just too much of a Gordian knot. And so what we've done is we've basically built a platform that we hope that other companies will also want to build on top of. So this obviously goes after the layer 1 market, and we think we have a true differentiation. We'll have a very, very fast blockchain that has true interoperability, that allows people to build and mint, their own blockchains and their own NFTs on the platform of whatever type of data or digital asset they want, and is uniquely encrypted with the world's best encryption. So I think that's already a huge one, because all of the current encryptions that currently exist in every blockchain that currently exists is using obsolete encryption. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe me. Look on your computer, go Google it, see what the government is saying about this type of encryption that's being used right now. There's two types. There's something called AES, which is Advanced Encryption Standard. They claim that that's quantum resistant, but AES is only as good as the public key wrapper, because the key for the AES gets transported in a public key transport of an elliptic curve or an RSA encryption. And RSA and elliptic curve are both compromised. Now, we've figured out how to use things like partial key cryptography. We've innovated. We filed patents. We have patents that have already been issued, right, in this regard. And we've innovated so that we could be ahead of this. And, I think the whole world eventually is going to be understanding what we've built and what we created and why it's so unique. It's the combination of all of these things that make us so bullish on where our position is right now. And quite frankly, the world has changed. Everyone now recognizes that data is the world's most valuable asset. I just had a meeting with a Medal of Honor winner who came to the office a few days ago to meet with me. And he gave me his book, and he's a very nice guy named David Bellamy. And David worked in security in the military. Of course, he was decorated because he ended up in a situation, the most highly decorated, person you can have is getting the Medal of Honor, right? So as an officer, he was decorated at the highest levels because, he took on 5 people and he was able to survive that. And obviously he was successful, not only surviving that, but also saving the lives of several other people in his troop, and single-handedly killed like 5 people that were terrorists. And I think it was Fallujah. And basically what was an interesting discussion with him was how he understood what one-time pad was immediately. It's like, oh, that's what we use in the military. It's the best encryption. It's the only one we use because we know it cannot be cracked. There's no mathematical intervention to crack it. And having secure communications is such a critical aspect of successful deployment. But the thing that he actually pointed out to me, which was most powerful of all, was he said, we know that the next wars that the United States faces will not be on the ground or in the air, will not even be nuclear. They're all going to be digital. It's all going to be digital. So this is only going to increase dramatically the value of encryption as time goes by. And having true quantum resistant encryption and encryption that people know and trust, they can count on, absolutely, without question. And the best test of one-time pad is that we haven't had any nuclear engagements that have been taken over by some terrorist. And believe me, they've got some pretty damn good hackers on those. And the reason they haven't been is because they're all one-time pad encryptions. So with that, I think that answers all the questions that were written beforehand. You have a couple more?
Yeah, we have one here that's asking if will Elon's efforts to have a decentralized messaging service infringe on CSOV's patents?
Not if he doesn't use one-time pad encryption, and not if he doesn't do it uniquely the way we're doing it. We will also have a decentralized storage mechanism on there as well. imagine that you would be able to reduce your storage requirement. Let's say you're paying a price to Apple or Google or whatever, and you would use our app to then compress your data down, another 2 to 4 times from the very beginning, right? So that means instead of needing 20, terabytes of data, you could basically come down to 10 or 5, right? So that definitely saves you money. And I just lost a whole bunch of stuff on GeoGebra because Google raised their price, and then I didn't see the email because it went to a different email I had used for a while. And so they just wiped out all my storage on GeoGebra, all my work, which was just kind of mind-boggling, but oh well, easy come, easy go. It wasn't so easy come in this case. So I still had my more recent stuff, but as soon as I went over a limit, they just like, there's no more free for you, right? No soup for you. What's your next question?
Andrea?
It's a little wordy, so I'm just gonna send it to your phone. Do you mind just reading? It might be easier for you to read.
Okay. Well, just read me another one then. Do you have a different one?
Do those 70 companies you mentioned have to use CSOV tokens?
The 70, yes, they will. That'll be there. It's just like Ethereum and gas fees. We have a real utility that's differentiated and proprietary. Now, I will say this, the new white paper is going to be going out probably later this week. It's crazy cool. It's really, really cool. And we are going to be open sourcing the technology. That's also a decision we've made internally, right? So this means that you guys, we will not open source the compression, but we need to open source the encryption because it needs to adhere to something called the Kirchhoff principle, which says that any encryption that you put forward needs to be sufficiently good that even if everyone knew the mechanism you're using, you still couldn't crack it, right? And so that's a critical aspect of what we do. In essence, our one-time pad is just a basic one-time pad. You can find the source code for that on different places on the internet. But what we've done that's unique is we made it more efficient, and we found ways to store keys and to uniquely combine it with some of the other standards, not only for random number generation, that allow us to make sure that we never kick out the same number series twice, which is a critical aspect of one-time pads that are successful, but also this increasing upgradability by vectorization of it. And in addition to that, even utilizing things like AES to basically assist in rapid and very, very long keys that can then be compressed as well. Next question.
Can you talk about whether you have decided to adopt an as negligible price for CSOV as possible strategy to facilitate mass take up by measures such as giving away CSOV technologies to corporations and government departments?
Can you talk about whether you have decided to adopt an negligible price for CSOV as possible strategy to facilitate mass take up by measures such as giving away CSOV technologies to corporations? So if the question is, have you guys deliberately tried to reduce the price of CSOV to make it more accessible? No, we've not. We've not tried to make the price lower so that it would be more accessible. That's not what we've done. We think that we can fractionate CSOV if it becomes too expensive and cut it into smaller parts, right? Which makes it easy to do that as well. I mean, there's no reason why we can't do that. You could do that right now with ETH. You can do it with Bitcoin. It can be fractionated all the way to 10 to the -8th power, I think, if we wanted to. But right now, we're happy with where it is. We believe that that it is dramatically undervalued. There's no doubt about that. It is dramatically undervalued. And I think that once people understand what the value of this is and what we've actually created, and we're getting more and more traction. I've been speaking at a lot of the conferences lately. I did this talk, and I've never once had, and I've been on maybe 1,000 panels in my lifetime, and I've never once gotten an ovation during the middle of my commentary on a panel, especially. And I did at that meeting, which was kind of unique because that was a first. And I think that there's just a very large desire to have what we have created that is now brewing. And once people get their arms around it, that's why we wanted to get the validation from the world's top cryptographers to be a part of this and show the outside world as well that it's been fully validated. You know, one of the great things that we did is we launched a book that was based entirely on new mathematics. And, you know, it's pretty funny, you know, that a lot of people ask the question, what's the difference between a crazy old man and a charming older gentleman who's slightly eccentric? You know, several $1 million is really the difference. But the reason I say that is because whenever you've got people that are saying, oh, I discovered math, it's a rare thing that they're actually going to write it in a book. And it's an even rarer thing that that book is going to be at the top of the sales, you know, charts for Amazon for the last 1.5 years now, and have almost 250 reviews, all of which are still, you know, at 4.7 out of 5 stars. That's pretty damn good, no matter how you look at it. And the whole book, if you haven't read it yet, is based on new mathematical discovery that you would not find in any university or anything. So there, you can imagine there's so many guys out there who would love to try to debunk. But of all the things that you try to, you know, fool people about in the world, I think the very last thing any person of sane mind and character would choose is to say that they've discovered new math, because it's really easy to debunk it, right? But this has not been debunked. So that should tell you a lot right there, that gaining that credibility, and we're only building in more credibility as time goes by, and we'll get more and more credibility from the cryptographic community as well as time goes by, because we're already making all the inroads to do exactly that. They've actually been reading my books as well, which is really cool. And, you know, I think that as we just continue to get that side of the community to endorse, then you're going to see this thing really do well. And I won't speak about the price of where it's going, because I can't. That's illegal. I can't do that. But what I will say is this: I believe our products have very high demand intrinsic to them. I believe our products will have increasingly high demand over time. And there's a limited pool of access to those products because they're tagged against our tokens, period. So I think it's a very exciting time to be in this. You know, I remember when the housing crisis happened in 2008. I was president of Allergan at the time, Allergan Medical. I walked outside of my office and there was a tower across the street of a company called New Century. And this was in 2007, in the summer of 2007. I want to say it was July. It was just as the housing market had crested and started to crash. And I saw hundreds of people in the parking lot because they'd all been let go. And, you know, then a few months later, we didn't think too much about it. I went to a board meeting. I gave a presentation to the board announcing that we had the best year ever, right? We launched this product called Juvederm, and it had a budget of 38 million in sales for the first year. And we ended up with $101 million in sales. And everyone was jumping up and down. And somebody asked me, like, what do you think about the economy and where it's going to go in 2008? And I said, to be honest, I think that this housing thing, because it was already starting to brew, is going to be an issue. And the founder of Allergan, who was in the board at that time, said something very profound. He was like 88 years old at the time. He's in his 90s now. He's still a brilliant, super sharp guy. And he said, you know, he owns a garden shop. He bought the house that was owned by Richard Nixon called the Western White House. And he lived in that house, very wealthy guy. And he owns Rogers Gardens, and they sell discretionary stuff, right? For, like, you know, Halloween is big for them and Christmas is big for them. It's all these people in Newport Beach with lots of money, and they have impulse purchases. They go to this place to do a lot of impulse buys. And so he said, you know, for the first time in quite a while, we saw impulse purchasing went way down in October and November. And this was in late November. And he said, we're tracking it weekly sales and average daily sales. And I said, yeah, we have to really watch out what's going to happen. He goes, I think there's a giant recession coming. And he called it, you know, and the real recession didn't really hit. The big recession didn't hit until the next late summer. And I remember being at a McKinsey conference for number twos to the CEO of companies at Gavin Newsom's Los Caneros Inn up in the Bay Area. And I was sitting next to by a fireplace, outside by a fireplace, next to the chief operating officer, number 2 guy at Lehman Brothers, who that night, it was October 7th, took a call for a board meeting where the Securities Exchange, chairman of the Securities Exchange Commission was on the call with their board, and they decided to let Lehman go bankrupt. So the guy literally packed up his bags, left us at the campfire that night. I was sitting next to the Broadcom CFO as well. And he literally is like, I'm out of here. My company's going bankrupt. And that was like, we're all sitting there. We just listened to a talk by A.G. Lafley that night. I remember he was the CEO of Procter & Gamble. And you know, shockwaves went around the world after that. When Lehman Brothers crashed, that was it. So I've seen these patterns, and everyone freaked out. Everybody freaked out. I remember it was like a complete shit show. The US is going to go bankrupt. It was horrible, right? The good news is this: things are never as good as they seem, but things are never as bad as they seem either. The truth is always in the middle. So in these moments when markets are wild and crazy and machinations, the best thing to do is sit on the sidelines, don't do anything, and just hold, and then wait for your moment to get in. I didn't sell my house at that time. You know, I still have the same house I had then. And I didn't sell it. And I remember the house prices went way down. They went down to 50% of their value. And now they're back up above and double where they were in 2008. I could literally sell my house now in Laguna for more than double the price that I paid for it. So you just have to wait it out. The only people that got hurt during that change and that machination were people that sold. So let me repeat that. The only people that got hurt when prices go down are people that sell, because when they sell, they lock in that loss. And time has this way of like fixing things and correcting things. You know, I think that time is polarized, just like our perception of time is polarized. That's what we see a positive, if we're an optimist, the future is positive polarity, and the past becomes more of a negative polarity. But the same thing is true with life in general, because I could give you so many circumstances where something that happened was the worst thing that ever happened to me at that moment in time. And then as I look back, even as early as a few months later, I look back on it and said, oh, geez, that turned out to be the best thing that ever happened. It's all how you decide to look at your world. So with that, I think we'll close up. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone. See you soon. Things are going great here at Crown Sterling. All the best.